This is Neal Fitzpatrick and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today's video will be an introduction to classical guitar. So let's get started. So before we start playing, we have to do some basic things like sitting and holding the guitar. Because without that, you won't really be able to play to your best abilities. So you just get a comfortable chair, usually a hard, even seat, and you want to sit on the edge of it a little bit. You don't want to be sitting back. And so you have to lift your left leg when you play classical guitar. It's pretty much the standard thing. And the old school conventional way to do it is to use a footstool like this. And it's adjustable. You can get this online anywhere or a local music store. And has these section on the back where you can adjust the height based on your size and the seat that you're on. So I'm going to put it right there. I still like to use the footstool. That's kind of how I prefer to play. There are alternative ways to do it, so I'm putting it there, and I lift my leg up. There's other things like this. This is a cushion, sort of, I call it a big stuffed comma, right? And you put that on your leg, and that way your feet stay on the floor. So that's just one option. There's these little braces too, but we can talk about that in another video. So, like I said, you sit on the edge of your seat. You get comfortable in 4 points of your body. Your two shoulders should be relaxed and down, and you should be sitting comfortably, and you bring the guitar to you like that. Right. So the most important thing is that you don't hold the guitar up with your left hand. You hold it up with your right arm like this. So you make a lever with your right arm, assuming most of you are playing right-handed. So what then is that it frees your left hand up to play without tension and without ease and without worrying about having to hold on to the guitar. You should never feel like you're going to save the guitar from falling with your left hand. It's sort of like violinists and violists, how they put the instrument underneath their neck, and that leaves the left hand free to go up and down the neck with ease and without any concern about holding up the instrument. And it's really the same thing with the guitar. So you create a lever like this, and you make a loose fist over the rosette like this, and as we will see in our next part, you put your thumb here to start making notes, and you have a slight break in your wrist like this. So you lower this a little bit. So you get the guitar, you have a sort of an angle where the tuning head is up around almost even with your head. Bring the guitar to you, a slight tilt backwards. You make a lever with your arm like this. And we're not even going to do anything with our left hand, so you just could put it on here, or you can just let it lie at your side. Put your thumb on the 5th string to support, and then you're ready to play. There is some basic terminology that we also need to proceed. So the first thing is the string numbers, because I'll be referring to certain string numbers. So the first string, the thinnest string, is the E, and so the first string is the highest pitch, and that's going to be the first string on which we do an exercise. And then the second string is the B, and that's the next thickest engage, and the third string, and so on. So the next and most important thing is how to indicate your fingers in your right hand. The fingers that you pluck the strings with, or produce the tone, produce the sound. So because of the heritage of the guitar, the Spanish heritage, we use a lot of Spanish terms. So we're going to do that right here. So your thumb, you play with your thumb, your index, your middle, and your ring finger. But in guitar terminology, that we're often referred to as PIMA, or P-I-M-A. Pulgar, indicio, medio, anular. And that's thumb, index, middle, and ring. So if somebody refers to your I finger, that's your index finger. If somebody refers to your middle finger, it's your medio or your middle, and so on and so forth. So we are going to start with an exercise on the first string with index and middle. So here is your first exercise on the classical guitar. So you're going to have a shape in your right hand, a soft curl like this. And it's not straight, it's not curled like a hook. And that's how your fingers are going to hang from your joints, like right here, these joints. And they have enough tension in them. You don't have to add to it. You just let them be. And there's an idea of supporting your hand. And so we're going to support the hand by putting your thumb, like you're going to hitchhike, on the 5th string, which is the A string. And you're going to place the tip of your fingers, whether you have a nail or not, because as you know, classical guitarists play with our nails. But for now, even if it's this flesh, right where your nail would meet your flesh. And I used the word pluck before, but it's really not plucking. It's a bit of a misnomer, because we're going to play what's called the rest stroke. And that's more of a push. So we're going to take your index finger, and we're going to push through the 1st string. And what you want to do is have a steady pulse. Plays, comes back, plays, comes back, plays, come back. You have this slight crack in your arm. It's not this, it's not this. You put your arm like a lever, and you let your hand just sort of hang there. And so you play this. And what you should do is you should do this for about 60 seconds to 1 minute to 2 minutes on each. Take a little break. And now what we're going to do is we're going to do the same thing on the middle finger. So again, little angle here. You play sort of in the middle of your finger to the left side, sort of in center left. It's a slight angle. And you push, and you let your finger come to rest on the adjacent string. In this case, it's the 2nd string. And if you notice, we're going for a steady pulse here, a steady pulse. Then, reset, just see, review what you just did. And we're going to alternate the 2 fingers. And this is a really important part of classical guitar playing. It's an essential part. So let's start with I. You place your finger on the 1st string, and you place the next finger on, and when one plays, the other goes out. You can even get a little meditation saying, I am. So once you get that, clear, you just do that for a couple of minutes, and then take a break, and then we're going to go to the 2nd string, and we're going to repeat that process. We're going to play all I, still maintaining that hand that looks like it's going to pick up a piece of luggage, a handle like that, but loose and relaxed. And you should be thinking about tone production. Like, what do I need to produce this tone? And it's never too early to take that into consideration. As soon as you start doing this, you are a musician. Then you revert, you take a break, play on the 2nd string. And you know where we're heading with this, so you reset. Now, we're going to do it on the 3rd string, but we're going to move our supporting thumb to the 6th string. Give you a little bit more space between your fingers. And again, do a minute or 2 on the 3rd string or the G string. Do that for about a minute or 2, then you're going to switch to your middle finger. So that is how you get started on classical guitar. Please join me for my next video where I introduce you to the 6th, 5th, and 4th strings and playing with your thumb. Please leave any comments below or questions, and feel free to email me or message me anytime. Thank you very much. See you next time. So on our getting started video, we started just talking about playing on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd strings open with nothing in your left hand. So just a reminder, playing the guitar, the right hand is like the motor, and that kind of drives everything. And you really want to just start with that and not even worry about your left hand if you're just getting started. We'll get to that. So just remember to start with your 1st string with just your index finger and your middle finger, and so on. So in this video, I provided some close-ups and some different angles to get a total perspective. The examples I used are all on the 1st string, but they apply to the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd string. Good luck. Welcome. So in this video, we're going to talk about your thumb and playing on the bass strings. On the lower three strings, so it's the 6th string, the 5th string, and the 4th string. The 6th string is the E string, the 5th is the A, and the D string is the 4th string. So we're going to focus on that with your thumb. Now in the last video where we talked about playing the open strings on the first 3 strings with I, M, and A, we did rest strokes, apoyando. So in this video, with the thumb, the pulgar, we're going to play free strokes. Most of the time when you play classical guitar, your thumb will be playing free strokes. So that's where we're going to start. And now there are times, many times, that you will play a rest stroke with your thumb. But doing arpeggios and a lot of just normal guitar patterns, you play a free stroke. So you place your first 3 fingers on the first 3 strings for support. And then you're going to just play in a semicircle, like this. And you're going to do like a steady pulse. And you play it, you place your thumb right on the string where your nail meets your flesh. If you already have a nail, then you want to sort of tuck the string in right between the nail and your flesh. And if you don't have a nail yet, you just play more or less, on the side of your nail. You don't play in like this. It's not like this. You're at kind of an angle. And then you play, and you do a semicircle. And you don't do a rest stroke for now. That'll come in time. A rest stroke is when you play and you push down into the next string. So let's just do a few. I'm going to exaggerate the circle. You do about 1 or 2 minutes on each string to start the 5th string. And if you notice, you want to keep your thumb straight out and sort of firm. I try to avoid terms like tense, but you want to keep it straight, and you have just enough give in your thumb for it to go through the string. Now, on the D string, what's important here is that you don't run into your fingers. So that's why your fingers are behind your thumb. They're behind, here's your thumb, and your fingers are behind your thumb. They shouldn't be like this because they hit each other. Like that. A little angle here. So you want your fingers to be behind your thumb, and you have this little semicircle. You don't want like this. So again, going back to the most basic thing we learned about in the Guitar Basics video, you create a loose fist, bring them out, place your fingers on the first 3 strings, and you just start to play. And you want to just do this to get started for a few minutes a day. An alternative way is to put your fingers on one string like this. The 1st string, the 2nd string, or the 1st. But by and large, this prepares you for more music that you would generally play in classical guitar. Here's a close-up of that semicircle motion that you should do. You play and play out, and you just start bringing it back in a steady motion, again, to reflect how you'll actually play when you play music, as opposed to a rest stroke. Rest strokes will come. There are many opportunities to play rest strokes in guitar. But for now, you got to do free strokes, and you do the semicircle. You want to aim for that spot where your nail meets your flesh. It's almost part nail, it's part flesh. Sort of like right in there. Right in that section there. Here's another angle of preparing to do your thumb exercise. Again, index finger on the 3rd string, middle finger M on the 2nd string, A ring finger on the 1st string, and it's at a little diagonal like this. There are always exceptions down the road, but this is your standard positioning, and this will get you ready to play your thumb. An alternative way to support your thumb during this exercise is to put all 3 fingertips on one string like this. So you place your A finger on the 1st string, your M finger on the 1st string, and your I finger on the 1st string. And you could also do the thumb exercises this way. And that has its benefits too. So like this or like this. And you can do it on the second string, you can place them on the third string. Either way is fine. Although this is my preference because it prepares you for more pieces to play down the road. Welcome back to Getting Started on Classical Guitar. In previous videos, we talked about using your I finger, your M finger, and your A finger, I, M, and A, with rest strokes. And we talked about playing on the bass strings, strings 6, 5, and 4 with your thumb with free strokes. So now we're going to combine them and have little combinations of back and forth, of playing P, then I, P, then M, P and A, and then combinations. So really, when you start to combine your fingers and alternating them, that's really the big next step into advancing in your classical guitar studies. So just to get started, we're going to just repeat P and I, P and M, P and A on the strings. But then you're going to transition to alternating. So you're going to alternate P, I, P, M, P, I, P, A, and then P, M, P, A. And again, the thumb plays free strokes, and your I, M, and A will be with rest strokes. Hi, welcome back. In our previous videos, we talked exclusively about the right hand, and that's really important to get started before we start to engage our left hand. So on today's lesson, we're going to start using our left hand fingers. Let's get started. So the most common ways to start using your left hand on the guitar is to, usually use an excerpt from a diatonic scale. So you'd use these consonant notes from a diatonic scale, like E, F, G, F, E on the first string, and then you would do E, B, C, D, C, B on the second string, and so on. And you can do that on all 6 strings. And we almost always start on the first string, and it seems to be the conventional thing. And so I do that too. And the other thing to do is maybe start with your first finger and just play a note and then release, and then do that on all 6 strings on the first fret, and like so on. So we're going to do like a little sort of variation on that. So we're going to start with your first finger on the first fret, press down, and just remember you keep a soft curl in your fingers like this. You're not like this, you're not like this. It's somewhere in between. Your hand has enough natural tension where you don't actually have to do much. You just have to let it be. And you should be able to have space between your palm of your hand and the bottom neck of the guitar, the bottom of the neck. So we're just going to do a repetitive exercise, and what we're going to do is we're going to play the first finger on the first fret, and then release the second finger on the second fret and release, and then the third fret and third finger, fourth fret, fourth finger. And so that, as you just notice, the fingers correspond to the frets for now in the first position. So we're going to play first fret, open, in a nice steady pulse. Now we're on the second fret with the second finger. Play the note, release, and you release about a ½ inch off. You try to maintain this curl in your left hand, this soft curl. Now your pinky and your first finger might play a little bit on the outside of your fingers because of the the way your fingers are constructed. Your second and third finger might go more centered in the center of your fingertip. I'm doing groups of 4. A group being a note, a release, a note, release, and then first. So if you notice, your hand always is above the fretboard. It's not, if you're playing one's not going behind, you're not going too high. Your fingers should be over the string. And while there are exceptions to this, you should always think of your fingers being in a 4-fret span. And there are exceptions. There are times you'll reach up to a 5th fret. But enough on that. We'll talk about that later. And so you just do that on each string. Let's show a slightly different perspective on the second string. Same exercise. And we're playing I and M rest strokes in the right hand. I'll just do 4 groups, or I should say 2 groups on each fret, 4 notes, 4 pitches. You go back the way you came. That sustained note. Let's go right to the 3rd string, and we're still using I and M. And when I go to the 3rd fret, you can move your hand the littlest bit. Your hand should never be stiff. It should be stable but loose. And if you see, look at that space between my hand and the bottom bottom of the neck of the guitar. Don't get fixated on reaching. Let your hand be nice and supple. You can even remind yourself sometimes of the shape just by putting your fingers down and lifting up, lifting up. You should have a soft curl, either a little straight or a little bit like this. One of the big no-nos in playing guitar is you're having your hand look like that. That's a no-no. There's a few things that are you just can't do. So I want to suggest a way to position your right hand when you play the bass strings. So I want you to put your ring finger, your A, on the first string, your middle finger on the second string, and your first finger on the third string like this. And that way, that sort of like reflects how you will play most of the time when you play a guitar, like or a chord. So it's a good sort of reinforcement of that. So we're going to play, we're going to start playing on the fourth string. When you do this exercise on the first 4 frets, your thumb is right there, right? And it's on, you can access the bass strings. So now we're going to start to do the exercise like this. So that's how you should position your right hand. An alternative is to put them on the first string, but I think this is more ideal and reflects how you'll play in the future. So let's see how this exercise looks on the bass strings. So again, palm up, sort of facing the ceiling, the bottom of the guitar, soft curl, sort of a straight wrist or a slight bend out. Slightly bend out, never like this. That's a no-no. Here we go. You drop your hand down and just bring up a loose hand like this, and here we go on the fourth string. We'll just do 4 pitches on each fret. Even and steady. Right to the 5th string, and you'll notice you have more license to let your bottom of your palm, or your palm, to come to the bottom of the guitar, because it has to reach the strings. Also, this is a great reinforcement for your basic hand position, because your fingers have no bad place to go. When they're playing on the bass strings, there's no place else to go, so they have to be here. So they can't sneak underneath the guitar or get out of position. And if you notice, sometimes I just move my hand up just the littlest bit. And that's how you should be when you're playing the guitar. You shouldn't feel stiff. Your hand should feel really supple. Last note, my hand should look like that. And the bottom of my palm, the palm is almost hitting the bottom of the guitar. You don't want to feel like you're grabbing onto it, but you know, it certainly can go higher. So when my hand starts here on the first string, it should look more or less the same as it does here. Do that again. So I'll do it on the 2nd string. I'll move to the 5th. My hand more or less looks the same, and that's something you should keep in mind as you're playing your left hand. So this is you can call this a chromatic exercise because you're not skipping any frets, and so you play, then release. You play, then release, and this is great because you can really examine your hands. You can just look at your hands, and it's primarily a left hand exercise, so you should always have a set of exercises where you are just looking at your hands. And so reading music is super important, and we'll talk about that, but you know, this way you can really look at what your hands are doing, if your hands going like this or like this, and just really relaxed. And don't forget, check in with your right hand. Make sure that you're alternating I and M as you do these exercises. Good luck. Hi, welcome back. So an important scale that all guitarists should know, not just classical guitarists, is the chromatic scale. Chromatic scale is just a series of half tones on the guitar. Today, I'm going to show you how to prepare for the larger scale in short little increments on each string. There are many variations of the chromatic scale, but the one I'm going to prepare you for is the one that starts on the low E, open, and proceeds up to the 12th fret on the first string. And I'm going to show you a pattern that has the fewest amount of shifts. So let's prepare for the larger scale with smaller units. And so let's begin on the 6th string, and it involves the open string and the first 4 frets. So we play open with our thumb, 1, 2, 3, 4, and let's return, 4, 3, 2, 1, open. And again, I'm playing with my thumb, P, in the right hand with rest strokes. You could also do it with free strokes, and I just happen to be doing rest strokes at the moment. So when you're ascending, when 1 plays, then 2 plays, release 1. When 3 plays, release 2. When 4 plays, release 3. And obviously on the way back, you have to release. There is a school of thought that says you can keep them down as you go. And that could be a good exercise once in a while just to see how that feels. But that can create tension, unnecessary tension. So I'm more into the release sort of technique. So you just do that, maybe 4 to 8 times, pause, reset, do the same exact exercise on the 5th string. Reinforce this idea of your hand being above the fretboard. Again, do that 4 to 8 times. You can do more if you want. And then do the same thing on the 4th string. So when you've done that, at least 4 to 8 times on each string, then go back to the open 6th string and combine them and go all the way to the 4th fret of the 4th string, like this. Let your hand be nice and supple and relaxed. And return. Notice when I release my first finger, I lean toward my pinky. I don't let it flail out. You don't let your fingers flail out. So let's look at the treble strings, the first 3 strings. And these are going to play with I and M with rest strokes. So your hand is going to be a little bit lower because you don't want to access those strings by pulling your hand back, which a lot of guitarists do when they're learning. You let your hand sort of go up and down. You can pull back a little bit sometimes, but not here. So here we go. Now on the 3rd string, we're just going to go up to 3. Because of the tuning of the guitar, if you go to the 4th fret, that will double up the open 2nd string, which we don't want to do. Pause. Now you're going to go to the 2nd string and do all 4 frets. nice steady pulse. Pause, and do the first string. So after you do the 3 strings individually, take a little break, reset, and do all 3 strings together. 3rd fret switch. And here are a few things to keep in mind while you're doing this exercise that you should pay attention to. So be careful to always have your fingers over the fretboard, and when you release one finger, that you don't flail out. When you release the first finger, and so no more fingers are down, that you just release and lean toward the next note that you're going to play. You don't blossom them out or sort of flail them out like this. So you actually lean to the next one, lean up the fretboard. The other thing to watch out for is that you just press down and in evenly, is that you don't pull the strings across the fretboard, because that changes the pitch, and you don't want that to get into your playing when you're playing pieces. So as you put your fingers down, see it like this a little much? You just place it there and let the note just sustain and ring out. You don't want to pull down like that with gravity. So pay attention to that. And also pay attention to the pulse. So always keep a nice steady pulse. Go at a pace where you can do it slowly and with a nice even pulse. So that's your preparation for the larger chromatic scale that will be in our next video. See you then. Thank you. Hi. In this video, we're going to work on the 3-octave chromatic scale, going from the low E on the 6th string to the high E on the 1st string at the 12th fret. In my previous video, I showed you how to work on it in small little bits on each string. So today, we're going to put those together. So there are different variations of the chromatic scale. I'm going to show you the one that has the least number of shifts in going up to the 12th fret. Even though this is primarily a left hand exercise, I'm going to begin by showing you what you should do with your right hand. So there are different ways to finger this scale. I'm going to choose one where you combine your thumb, P, and with I, M, and A, your other fingers. So place I on the 3rd string, place M on the 2nd string, and place A on the 1st string. So they're like this, in sort of a natural playing position. So for all the notes that you play on the bass strings, or 6, 5, and 4, you'll be playing with your thumb. Get to the 3rd string, you're going to shift easily right into I and M. And you're going to place your thumb on the 6th string for support. Before we focus on the full 3-octave scale, I want to focus on what we do when we get to the 1st string. So when you reach the open 1st string, you're going to go up in groups of 4. So you start with the open string. You've run out of fingers here. So you move your first finger to the next available fret, which is the 5th position on the 5th fret. Keeping that curl in your fingers. You run out of fingers, you go up to the 9th fret. Pause and return. You've run out of frets, you bring your pinky down to the 8th fret, and you're in the 5th position because your first finger is in the 5th fret. You do the same thing here. That's the most efficient way to play that on the first string. So let's combine all the elements from the previous video into one long scale. Here are a few reminders when executing this scale. Bring your hand up to the guitar and have a soft curl in your fingers. Don't hyperextend them, don't contract them too much. You should almost always have a little space here between the neck and your palm. And if you'll notice, when your hand is here, it won't look terribly different than when it's here. So your arm is moving your hand around in this sort of ideal position. Of course, there are exceptions when you play certain scale passages or chord passages or a combination, but your hand should more or less always look like this. And as a reminder of why you do this scale and why most guitarists do this regardless of style, is it always reinforces sort of an ideal hand position in your left hand. Primarily that you keep your fingers above the fretboard. It also helps you just to move around the fretboard and get more at ease with doing that. You can use it to identify letter names. You can say the letter names of every fret that you go up and down. So for example, you go E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, and so on. And then when you're descending, you could use flats. So E, E flat, D, D flat. It's just a great warm-up for both hands. It's primarily a left-hand exercise, but your right hand obviously is part of it, so it's good for both. And just remember, you can play a variety of right-hand fingerings for this. You can play all free strokes, you can play all rest strokes, you can play rest strokes with your P with thumb, and free strokes with I, M, and A, or the opposite. Different combinations. You can do rest strokes maybe just on the first 2 strings. So experiment with different right-hand articulations. So whether you've been playing for a month or 10 years, the chromatic scale is really helpful and really important. Hi, in this next series of videos, we're going to take a look at one of the most undertaught things in guitar playing. Not just classical guitar playing, but really all of guitar playing, and that is major and minor scales in the first position. when we begin to learn scales, most guitarists learn a few in sharp keys, G and D and A and C maybe, and then it sort of gets glossed over. So we're going to look at all major keys and minor keys, with flat keys and sharp keys. So we will begin in the key of C and proceed through all the keys in the cycle of fifths. So let's go over some basic terminology. So what do I mean by the first position? Whenever you play the guitar or any stringed instrument, at any given moment you're in a position. So if you were to put all 4 fingers down with your first finger on the first fret, you would be in the first position. It is also called the open position. So regardless of what you're playing, if you were to put all 4 fingers down at that moment, you'd be in the first position. If I just played this back and forth, I'm still in the first position even though I'm not really engaging my first finger. Also, when you play major scales in the first position, you will use open strings. One scale doesn't even have one, and we'll get to that. And some scale might just have one open string, but while you do these scales, so you will be playing open strings when they are available. So I am going to focus on the left hand in these videos, but we will talk about the right hand. So here we begin with C major. So you start with your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the 5th string. So let's do that with letter names now. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Returning. C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C. So let's talk about the right hand while playing these scales. At first, I would advise playing your thumb on the 6th, 5th, and 4th strings, which is kind of an old school way of doing it. And then when you get to the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st strings, the so-called treble strings, switch to I and M. So I will play C using that pattern. So I place my fingers like this, as if you're going to play an arpeggio pattern, and proceed. 5th string, 4th, switch, put your thumb on the 6th string as your support, switch back, Another way to play these scales is playing I and M, or any combination of I, M, and A, but we're going to start with I and M. So what to do with your thumb when you're playing on the bass strings? So what you should do is find your place and put your thumb on the guitar for contact. And when you play this string, your hand should look more or less the same as it does here. So how do you do that? You move everything like this. So you have your thumb on the guitar for support, for contact, and you begin the scale with I. Now move your thumb to a bass string. Then move it back. Also remember, when you play with I and M or M and A or I and A, that you don't pull your arm back like this so much. So you push through the strings. You push through the strings without dragging your hand back like this. There is a time and place where you might do that for a little tone, but by and large, even though you're engaging your large muscles in your arm, you're pushing through the string. not doing that. G major. Now in the first position, 2 octave scales are available in some keys. In the previous video, C had only 1 full octave, G has 2. So let's begin. Start with your 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the 6th string. Let's do G with letter names. G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, G, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, F sharp, E, D, C, B, A, G. Now D major in the first position, and you're going to start with the open 4th string. Let's try D with letter names. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, D. D, C sharp, B, A, G, F sharp, E, D. Now we're going to do A major. Now A major is a funny one. It's almost 2 octaves. It's 1 note shy. So we're going to cheat a little bit and we're going to go up to the 5th string, up to the 5th fret on the 1st string to have 2 complete octaves. So we're going to start with the open 5th string, A. If you notice, I went up to the 2nd position to get the high A. It would seem silly to not go all the way up to the note, 1 more note to get the full 2 octaves. So let's do A major with letter names. A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, G sharp, F sharp, E, D, C sharp, B, A, G sharp, F sharp, E, D, C sharp, B, A. So here we have another 2 octave scale available to us in the first position, and that is E major. And we will start with the lowest string, the 6th string, in standard tuning. Here we go. Let's do E major with letter names. E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E, E, D sharp, C sharp, B, A, G sharp, F sharp, E, D sharp, C sharp, B, A, G sharp, F sharp, E. Now for B major in the first position. This is a 1-octave scale. We're going to start on the 2nd fret of the 5th string with your 2nd finger. And remember, fingers correspond to frets in the first position. So, B major. And if you notice, B only has 1 open string in the first position, and that is the open B string. And we are already at 5 sharps when we get to B. Let's do that with letter names. So let's now do B major with letter names. B, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B. B, A sharp, G sharp, F sharp, E, D sharp, C sharp, B. So now we are at an unusual scale. This is either G flat major, where you pivot into the flat keys, or we can call this F sharp major. They have the same pitches, but they're different names. So F sharp major has 6 sharps, and G flat major has 6 flats. So let's keep that in mind. We'll just play it without the letter names for now. So you start on the 6th string on the 2nd fret. And you may have noticed there's only 1 open string on this scale, and that is the 2nd string. And it has a different name in each scale. Let's do this scale again with different letter names. We're going to do it in F sharp first. F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp. F sharp, E sharp, D sharp, C sharp, B, sharp, G sharp, F sharp, E sharp, D sharp, C sharp, B, A sharp, G sharp, F sharp. So that seems like a lot to remember, but all you have to really remember is that B is the only note that is not sharp. Everything else has a sharp. So now we will do that scale with different letter names. It was F sharp major, now we will play it in G flat major. G flat, A flat, B flat, C flat, D flat, E flat, F, G flat, A flat, B flat, C flat, D flat, E flat, F, G flat. G flat, F, E flat, D flat, C flat, B flat, A flat, G flat, F, E flat, D flat, C flat, B flat, A flat, G flat. And yes, there are such things as C flats. So now we are at the scale that has no open strings, and that is D flat major, and that has 5 flats. So we will start with your 4th finger on the 4th fret of the 5th string. Here we go. I'll show you the pattern. Let's play that with letter names. D flat, E flat, F, G flat, A flat, B flat, C, D flat, D flat, C, B flat, A flat, G flat, F, E flat, D flat. Now we will play A flat major, and A flat has 2 octaves available in the first position, and with only 1 open string available. So let's start with our 4th finger on the 4th fret of the 6th string. Let's do A flat major with letter names. A flat, B flat, C, D flat, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D flat, E flat, F, G, A flat. A flat, G, F, E flat, D flat, C, B flat, A flat, G, F, E flat, D flat, C, B flat, A flat. Now let's do E flat major in the first position. This is 1 octave available in the first position for E flat. We will start with the 1st finger on the 4th string on the 1st fret. Now let's do E flat with the letter names. E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D, E flat, E flat, D, C, B flat, A flat, G, F, E flat. And you might have noticed by now, as we proceed through the flat keys, we're getting fewer flats. When we proceeded through the sharp keys, we gained sharps. It's just how the cycle works. Now let's do B flat major in the first position with 1 octave. Start with your first finger on the first fret of the 5th string. Let's do B flat major with letter names. B flat, C, D, E flat, F, G, A, B flat. B flat, A, G, F, E flat, D, C, B flat. Now for F major in the first position, and there are 2 octaves for F major in the first position. Start with your first finger on the 6th string on the 1st fret. Now let's do F major with the letter names. F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F, F, E, D, C, B flat, A, G, F, E, D, C, B flat, A, G, F. So you notice when you get done with F and you count up 5 steps, you will get to C again, which is where you started. So you've gone around the cycle of fifths or the circle of fifths in a sequence of scales. So you might be wondering what rhythm I should play these scales. I would recommend that at first you just learn the patterns, learn where the notes are on the fretboard, and just examine how your fingers should be and your positioning. Don't worry about rhythm yet. After a while, just go to a metronome and find 50 to 60 in that range somewhere. Even slower, you can go below 50. Just find that slow pulse and match a single note to that beat. You can even turn the metronome off. It's just a reference point. Then just always play steady and evenly at first to get started. And don't forget to do variations in your right hand. I suggested that you do the bass strings 6, 5, and 4 with your thumb, and then move to I and M on the treble strings 3, 2, and 1. You can also play them all with I and M, and you can also start to experiment with M and A and I and A. But for now, I would recommend 2 scales, just thumb and a combination of I and M, or I and M to get started.